Not your underscore mom's advice. Yes, best friend from childhood tried to kill me by shooting me 3x point blank with a 45 calories, through the neck, out my back, in my gut and left hip. This all was BC. He relapsed after 4 years of sobriety due to his relationship ending, couldn't handle his emotions and got aggressive toward me and my friends on my property who were just visiting for my birthday. Flatline 2 times in operation, lots of blood transfusions, stomach surgery, and a destroyed C6. Bullet bruised my left jugular vein. I got super lucky. Lots of surgery to come, and healing in all types of ways. He faces second-degree felony, but the lovely state of Co allows him to be on bond till final hearing, so we have a man in our streets who tried to murder someone. I69 Edma Penguin. I got 2 like this, but one of them I genuinely think was a good dude trying to help. Anyways, I was around 8 years old playing street hockey with my neighbor. It was right after school. I grew up in an upper-class city. Just to preface this next part, a guy and his wife pull up in a beater minivan that was 15 years outdated in a tucked-away neighborhood, so it was already an out-of-place vehicle, but I was a kid so these things weren't really strange to me at that age. I just wanted to play street hockey. We move our net to let them by and they pull up beside us. The details get pretty fuzzy here because I don't remember exactly what they said 19 years ago when I was 8. But they tried to coax us into the car. All I remember after that was backing up away from the vehicle, probably said something synonymous with stranger danger, and they sped off. The second one though I remember clear as day. Me and 2 friends are walking down the street at 1 a.m. It was a pretty busy road, so it wasn't strange to see a car at that hour. This guy was mid-20s if I had to guess. Was clearly very gay. He drove next to us for 30 seconds saying, "I just want to make sure you guys are safe, please let me give you a ride." That we were 15 and had already hit a growth spurt, so 3v1 in a fight the guy had no chance. I think he actually wanted to drive us home and really was just being nice. But it's another one of those things that I won't ever forget. The Hagi got in a fight at a party in high school at 16. Shouldn't have been there, but was young and dumb. 24-year-old crazy guy was there and got the idea in his head that I stole some of his money. He was waving around like 5K in bills and apparently lost some. He accused me of taking and I mouthed off. Next thing I know I'm being woken up on the floor. He had knocked me out but continued beating me, fracturing my orbital. Thankfully others there pulled him off. Buddy took me home, then parents to ER. Explaining that wasn't fun. I also should have died a couple of times in Iraq. I wasn't combat arms but transported tanks and their crews, 88M, and we rolled through a few ambushes on the road that I have no idea how I survived, drove through a wall of tracers and we somehow didn't take a hit, not to mention the numerous IEDs and nightly mortars/rockets at various camps and FOBs across the country. I got lucky, but unfortunately others did not. Forngel 4E, I used to have a stalker/abuser and a lot of crazy things happened. But the last thing that ever happened was her trying to kill me. She was at my apartment and trying to break down the door screaming she was gonna kill me, so she punched through my window, but in the best karmic way possible she cut super deep into her arm on the pullback and just about severed her whole arm off. There was an older woman who lived there who was a nurse back in the day and created a tourniquet until the EMS and police arrived. I had to personally clean all the blood and risked getting kicked out. My landlord was a terrible person. He said that I shouldn't have bad people around and drama around. Even when I showed him an extensive collection of things this person had done to me and all the police reports, didn't matter. Stalker wasn't in his vocabulary, I suppose. Was on thin ice for the small amount of time I stayed there waiting for the process of getting a new place. I was not going to stay long and have a possible retaliation from her. This was a few years ago. Honestly, it stuck really hard with me, but I finally am able to have access to a counselor and psychologist, and am slowly truly healing from it all. Edit, said psychologist and meant psychiatrist. Huggiestike, my ex-girlfriend. We got drunk, got into an argument, a verbal fight turned into a physical one, where she is the aggressor and I don't even so much as try to defend myself. I try to defend her actions and say she wasn't actually trying to kill me. But I'll never know exactly what was going on in her head as she shoved me repeatedly against her 10th floor apartment window hard enough to crack the glass, or how she held me by the neck while pressing the edge of a knife into the side of my neck. Maybe she was just trying to intimidate me. I'm rationalizing. My therapist disagrees, says she 100% was trying to do some damage. All I know is that night could have ended up a lot worse than it actually did, and that was my wake-up call to finally GTFO. U/middle, add 3377, yes. Active duty here. One deployment out to sea, a disgruntled sailor I worked with was being sent to mast because I reported them for a tagout violation. He was going to lose everything. It was his 4th time going up. One night while down in steering, I hear a thump from above. He took 4 CO2 bottles, a homemade Molotov and some gunpowder he snuck on board and essentially tried to throw a bomb into the space I was doing maintenance in, aft steering. I was hurt pretty badly. Luckily someone was doing laundry around the same P-way and saw him, able to identify him based on his shoes he wore. They do a berthing check, discover he tried covering them in Sharply and paint. He was arrested and court-martialed at the next port after being contained. U/Ink Drinkin' Bilge Rat, I rescued my now senior dog from a shelter 12 years ago, he's now 14. They tried to deter me from adopting him because he was far too aggressive to make a good pet, ever again due to the heavy abuse he endured. I couldn't accept that when he put his head between his paws and looked up at me with his beautiful golden eyes. Anyway, I was married to an abusive man at the time who really liked to slap, kick, punch, and generally hit me whenever I offended him. His greatest mistake was doing that in front of Charlie for the first and last time. This guy had curly, thick hair that was almost to his shoulders, and he was fairly tall. Charlie is a stocky German Shepherd/Husky mix that looks like his namesake from All Dogs Go to Heaven, right to the ears that don't stand up straight. So, this guy is choking me. First time he has ever done this, and I can't cry out, no one is even around to help, and I'm fully convinced he's going to kill me. The only training I've done with Charlie so far is to respond to snaps of my fingers to pay attention, so I snap my fingers weakly. Charlie understood. He jumped up the guy's back, grabbed his hair in his mouth and dropped all his weight to pull the guy backward. He saved my life. My precious boy has been with me through thick and thin. U/Kritskrig IIC, I worked in crisis group homes for youths. I had one kid who was a total string bean with terrifying strength for his size. In an altercation, he was absolutely the equivalent of a greased-up naked guy as well. He targeted female staff, a lot, both violently and sexually, and generally I intervened as none of the women were strong enough to overpower him. This did not put me high on his friend list. The group home sucked, and the boy's bed was made of wood. He spent what we think were days at night sharpening a wooden shiv, about an inch wide and just shy of a foot long, by breaking it off one of his bed slats and sharpening it with the side of his bed. We had an awake overnight team, but awake overnighters are notorious for their apathy, and either heard nothing or didn't care. The guy called me in one day for an issue with something in his closet. I looked and said I saw nothing, fully turning toward him to say it. It was then he revealed his tool and screamed, "Die bitch," and plunged it as hard as he could into my left shoulder. I'm convinced his goal was my heart. He impaled me all right. And I was bleeding, but he didn't succeed in crippling me or even, with all the adrenaline, breaking my range of motion in my left arm, so I proceeded to try to wrestle him into a hold and call staff for assistance. At this point he could tell his plan failed and he went for a Hail Mary bite on my right collarbone as I tried to pin his legs and arms solo. He bit me so hard he bruised my collarbone and broke off one of his front teeth. The woman I was working with saw that and, rather than help me with the hold, panicked and called 911 before proceeding to have a panic attack at all the blood. They took about 7 minutes to get there, and I kept restraining him while bleeding profusely in 2 places. I was then taken to a hospital ER, but not by ambulance. My manager drove in and took me. So sketch. I had stitches in both shoulders, but it's been years and I don't think I have any lasting issues from it. I'd like to say this was my only story like this, but I have dozens. I wanted to quit for 7 years, but I had 2 kids at 20 and 22 and needed to provide for them, and it was essential to me they be raised by their mother and I in their formative years. And it was the best wage I could find while pursuing my bachelor's in computer science, so I took the beatings for about 7.5 years before finally graduating. The year COVID hit and reset the whole economy. Life has been a wild ride, ha. U/Biloxabluis, yeah, victim of the knockout game in Denver, Colorado. If a Samaritan hadn't stopped the assault, I would have been brain dead, hit and run on my bike in the same city, left for dead in traffic. Clinically dead for what I was told, 1 to 2 minutes with a broken neck and split skull. Cops investigating for a week never got the driver. At this point I've got 2 TBIs, moved to NYC, was out in a bad part of the Ridgewood/Bushwick border after a shift and a stick-up crew tried to roll me around 5 a.m. and got stabbed in the back on my right shoulder, fought them off and bled a lot, but I'm alive. I don't like going out in public anymore. I did active shooter training for employees for a while. When I do, I scope exits and keep my back to the wall and don't ever relax. Humans are garbage. I stay home. Edit. For anyone reading this post, Denver, Colorado is where I'm from and people think it's all namaste and a weed playground. It's not. Denver is violent and harder than anyone tells you. Be safe in the 5280 if you visit. Felt more safe in NOLA than the Mile High.